You opened your kitchen cabinet this morning and counted them. 30 bottles, maybe 40. Vitamin D, magnesium, probiotics, B complex, turmeric capsules, fish oil. Each one promising something, each one costing $30, $40, sometimes $60 a bottle, and deep down you already suspect most of them are doing nothing. Here is the question that nobody wants to ask out loud. If human beings need 30 different pills to stay healthy, how did anyone survive before 1,950? Now picture this, a wooden countertop in a farmhouse outside Mount Hope, Ohio, a single glass jar, 3 ingredients you can buy for under $4 that replace over $600 a year of bottles on that shelf. And inside that jar, a living ferment that delivers more usable vitamins, minerals, and probiotics than every bottle on your shelf combined. The Amish have been making it for over 150 years. They do not call it medicine, they call it a habit. The first time I walked into one of these homes near Millersburg, I saw no medicine cabinet. None. Just a clay crock next to the wood stove, bubbling quietly. The woman of the house opened that crock the way most of us open a pill bottle. By the end of this, before we are done here, I am going to read you the exact words written in pencil in a 1923 Pennsylvania Dutch household binder on page 41 that almost nobody outside Holmes County has ever seen. And no, you do not need a farm, a barn, or land to do this. You need a jar, a spoon, and a windowsill. Let me tell you who I am. I am 63 years old, and I spent 31 years buying supplements, 31 years walking into pharmacies and walking out with paper bags full of pills. I trusted the labels. I trusted the recommended daily values printed on the side. I trusted the smiling people on the commercials telling me that modern food was deficient and I needed help. And I never once asked the obvious question. That question started bothering me right after my 60th birthday. I was visiting a family I had known for years in Lancaster County, sitting at their long kitchen table, eating bread that the grandmother had baked that morning, and I noticed something. There were no pill bottles anywhere, not in the bathroom, not on the kitchen counter, not in the pantry. I asked the grandfather, a man in his late 70s who could still split firewood for 2 hours without breaking a sweat, what he took for his joints. He looked at me like I had asked him what brand of helicopter he flew. He said, "I drink the ginger bug every morning since I was a boy." I had never heard those 2 words in my life. Ginger bug. He walked me over to a shelf in the corner of the kitchen and showed me a quart-sized mason jar with a piece of cheesecloth on top, held down by a rubber band. Inside was cloudy liquid the color of weak tea, and floating in it were small chunks of fresh ginger root. He told me his wife fed it every morning with a spoonful of fresh ginger and a spoonful of plain white sugar. That was it. That was the whole thing. 3 ingredients: fresh ginger root, plain sugar. Filtered water, no starter culture you have to mail order, no expensive equipment, no probiotic packets from the health food store. The bacteria and wild yeasts that drive the fermentation are already living on the skin of the ginger root itself. You are not adding life, you are just giving life a place to live. He told me that in his community, this ferment is the foundation of every other tonic they make. Switchel, which is the old farm worker drink made of ginger bug, raw apple cider vinegar, and a touch of raw honey, was what his grandfather drank in the hayfields during the harvest of 1948 when temperatures hit 96 degrees in the shade. Nobody on that farm cramped, nobody got heat stroke. They drank it from glass jugs wrapped in wet burlap and kept working. But here is the part that stopped me cold. He said his grandmother used to keep a written record of every household remedy in a leather binder. And in that binder, dated 1923, there was a single page that listed the ginger bug ferment as the replacement for, and I am quoting his words, every store-bought tonic in the catalog. That was the year Sears and Roebuck sold over 40 different patent medicines through the mail, and the Amish communities in Holmes County had quietly walked away from all of them. So why does this work? Why does a jar of fermented ginger water do what a cabinet full of supplements cannot? The answer is in something that the supplement industry does not want you to think about for more than 5 seconds. It is called bioavailability. Bioavailability is the percentage of a nutrient your body can actually absorb and use When you swallow a synthetic vitamin tablet, your body sees a foreign chemical compound and processes it the way it processes any foreign substance. A lot of it passes through you and ends up in the toilet. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is documented in the USDA Dietary Supplement Ingredient Database, version 3, which was published with funding from the National Institutes of Health. The chemical analysis of 115 common adult multivitamins showed that label-reported ingredient levels and actual absorbable levels are two very different numbers. Now compare that to a living ferment. When wild yeasts and lactic acid bacteria break down ginger root and sugar, they do not just preserve the nutrients already in the ginger, they manufacture new ones. Active fermentation produces B vitamins, including B12, which is the one supplement nearly every American over 60 is told to inject or swallow. It produces vitamin K2, which moves calcium out of your arteries and into your bones. It produces gut-active enzymes that your pancreas would otherwise have to make from scratch. And it delivers all of this in a form your gut recognizes as food, not as a foreign tablet, because that is exactly what it is. The grandfather poured me a small glass, about 4 ounces. The taste was sharp, slightly sweet, faintly carbonated, with a warm bite of ginger at the back of the throat. He told me, "You drink this every morning before breakfast, and within 3 weeks you stop reaching for anything else." I did not believe him. I drove home to my house in Pennsylvania and I bought ginger root at the grocery store that same evening. Therefore, the very next morning, I started my own jar on the kitchen counter. And what happened over the next 90 days changed how I think about every bottle in my medicine cabinet. But before I tell you what happened to me, I need you to understand why this ferment, and dozens of others like it, were almost erased from American kitchens in the first place. Because this part is not folklore, this part is documented history, and it is the reason your grandmother probably did not pass this knowledge down to your mother. In 1906, Congress passed the Pure Food and Drug Act. On paper, it was meant to protect Americans from poison patent medicines. In practice, it created the first federal definition of what counted as a drug, and that definition was written in a way that gave the new pharmaceutical companies enormous power over what could be sold, recommended, or even discussed in print. By 1938, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act expanded those powers further. Suddenly, anything that claimed to treat, cure, or prevent a disease had to go through federal approval, and federal approval cost money that no farmer with a crock of fermented ginger water could ever afford. The traditional remedies did not disappear because they stopped working. They disappeared because the legal infrastructure made it impossible to talk about them in public without risking prosecution. The Amish, who do not advertise, do not file for trademarks, and do not depend on the mainstream economy, were the one community in America that never had to comply. They kept fermenting. They kept teaching their children, and while the rest of the country was being trained to walk into a pharmacy for every minor complaint, the families in Lancaster and Holmes counties were keeping a 1,000-year-old tradition alive in plain sight. The grandfather in Mount Hope told me something I have thought about almost every day since. He said, "Our people did not save this knowledge because we are smart. We saved it because we never threw it away. Everything around us was telling us to throw it away. We just did not listen." That is the heart of what you are watching right now. This is not new information. This is recovered information. Information that was working perfectly fine in American kitchens for over 2 centuries before a handful of industries decided there was more money in selling you the cure than letting you make it yourself. By the 1950s, the supplement industry was a small operation worth a few $1,000,000 a year. By 2023, it was a $177 billion global market, and more than half of all American adults are now taking at least one supplement daily, according to data tracked by the United States Department of Agriculture. Half of America. Buying bottles, filling cabinets, and the rate of chronic disease has not gone down, it has gone up. Heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune conditions, joint inflammation, and digestive disorders are at the highest levels ever recorded. If supplements work the way the labels promise, you would expect the opposite. You would expect a nation that swallows pills every morning to be the healthiest one on earth. Instead, we are one of the sickest. And here's the part that should make every doctor in America uncomfortable. Study after study comparing Amish communities to the general American population shows results so striking that researchers have a hard time publishing them in mainstream journals. Lower rates of obesity, lower rates of type 2 diabetes, dramatically lower rates of childhood asthma and allergies, and a digestive health profile that gastroenterologists describe as resembling pre-industrial populations from 100 years ago. The federal government has been studying these communities for decades, and the results almost never reach the public in any organized form. So what is the ginger bug actually doing inside your body? Let me walk you through this slowly, because once you understand the mechanism, you will never look at a probiotic capsule the same way again. Your gut contains roughly 100 trillion microorganisms. That is not a typo. 100 trillion. They outnumber the cells of your own body by a factor of 10 to 1. They manufacture neurotransmitters. They regulate your immune system. They produce vitamins your body cannot make on its own. And they communicate directly with your brain through what scientists now call the gut-brain axis. When you swallow a probiotic capsule, you are introducing somewhere between 1 and 50 billion bacteria. That sounds like a lot until you remember the number 100 trillion. A capsule is a teaspoon of water poured into a swimming pool. A daily glass of ginger bug, on the other hand, is not just delivering bacteria, it is delivering the living environment those bacteria need to colonize, including the prebiotic fibers from the ginger, the organic acids produced during fermentation, and the enzymes that prime your gut wall to receive them. This is what the Amish grandmother in Lancaster County meant when she told me that you cannot supplement your way to health, you have to ferment your way to health. The words sounded almost biblical to me at the time. Now I understand they were simply accurate. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch or living on a farm, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need land. You do not need a root cellar. You do not need a basement that stays a perfect 55 degrees. You need a kitchen counter, a clean glass jar, and a piece of cloth. Here is how to start your first ginger bug this weekend, exactly the way the families in Holmes County taught me, with no modifications and no shortcuts. Take a clean, quart-sized glass mason jar. Do not use plastic, do not use metal that touches the liquid, fill it about 2/3 with filtered water. If your tap water is heavily chlorinated, let it sit out uncovered overnight first, so the chlorine can evaporate, because chlorine kills the wild yeasts you are trying to cultivate. Next, take a piece of fresh organic ginger root, roughly the size of your thumb. Do not peel it. The wild yeasts and beneficial bacteria you need are living on the skin itself. If you peel it, you are throwing away the entire point. Slice or grate about 2 tablespoons of the ginger and drop it into the jar. Add 2 tablespoons of plain white sugar. Yes, white sugar. The bacteria need simple sugars to feed on, and they will consume almost all of it during fermentation, leaving you with very little actual sugar in the final drink. Stir with a wooden or plastic spoon, never metal. Cover the jar with a piece of cheesecloth, a coffee filter, or a thin, clean dish towel and secure it with a rubber band. You want air to flow in, but you want to keep fruit flies and dust out. Place the jar on a kitchen counter where the temperature stays between 68 and 75 degrees, away from direct sunlight, away from the stove. Stir it once every morning and once every evening with that wooden spoon, and each day for the first 5 to 7 days, add another spoonful of grated ginger and another spoonful of sugar. This is called feeding the bug. Within 3 to 5 days, you will see tiny bubbles forming around the ginger pieces. Within 7 days, the liquid will be visibly fizzy when you stir it, with a sharp, yeasty, slightly sweet smell. That means it is alive. That means it is working. From that point on, you can pour off about a half cup every morning, drink it straight, or mix it with a tablespoon of raw apple cider vinegar and a teaspoon of raw local honey to make the traditional switchel that Amish field workers have been drinking for over 150 summers. Then you refill the jar with fresh filtered water, another spoonful of ginger, and another spoonful of sugar. The same starter culture can live in your kitchen for years. The oldest active ginger bug I have personally seen was started in 1,987 inches a kitchen near Berlin, Ohio, and it is still producing every single day, 38 years, from 3 ingredients, from 1 jar, with no electricity, no refrigeration, and no replacement cost. The grandmother who keeps that jar told me her mother started it when she was a girl, and her mother told her something that I want you to carry with you. She said, a living thing in the kitchen is worth more than $1,000 of dead pills in the cupboard. And every morning she pours a glass for her husband, who is 81, still walks 2 miles to the barn before breakfast, and has never taken a prescription medication in his life. Before I show you what is on page 41 of that 1,923 binder, one quick thing. Everything I have been pulling out of these Amish kitchens and household records, the 3-ingredient ginger bug that replaces over $600 a year of bottles on your shelf, the switchel that kept Amish field workers going in 96-degree heat, the bioavailability gap between a synthetic pill and a living ferment, the grandmother's jar that has been running since 1987 without a single replacement cost. What comes next on page 41? The lime wash thermal coating from the wall video, the 15 borax uses from the borax video, the 21 vinegar uses from the vinegar video, the 20 Depression era money secrets, and all the other pieces I have pulled out of Lancaster County and Holmes County over the years. I have put it all in one place, room by room, season by season, in the order the families actually use it. It is called the Amish Home System. Link is in the description. But stay right here, because what Eli's grandmother wrote on page 41 in 1923 is the second stage ferment that the elder women of Holmes County called the medicine cabinet in a jar. But there is a piece of this practice that even most people who have heard of ginger bugs do not know. A specific technique that I found buried in a single line of a Pennsylvania Dutch household record from 1923, and that almost nobody outside a few elder Amish families still practices. And once I show you this, you will understand why this ferment was called the medicine cabinet in a jar. I want to tell you exactly where I found this. I was sitting in the kitchen of a man named Eli in his late 70s in a farmhouse north of Charm, Ohio. He was showing me his grandmother's recipe binder. It was a leather-covered 3-ring book that had been passed down through 4 generations of women in his family. The earliest entries were written in Old German script. The later ones, starting around 1923, were in English, because by then the children were going to the township school and the family had decided to record everything in a language the next generation could read without help. On page 41 of that binder, written in pencil that had faded to the color of weak coffee, there was a recipe titled simply, "The Long Bug," and underneath it were 3 lines. Take from the mother jar a half cup, add to it 1 whole clove of garlic, crushed. Let it sit 4 days more, covered, and drink 1 spoon in the morning and 1 spoon at night. That was it. That was the entire entry. No explanation, no claim, no description of what it was for. Eli looked up at me and said, "My grandmother used this for everything that the regular bug did not fix. Coughs that would not go away, stomach pains that lasted more than a few days, cuts that were not healing right. She would take a portion of the regular ginger bug, add the crushed garlic, and let it ferment for an additional 4 days. The result was a second stage ferment that combined the gut healing properties of the original with the antibacterial sulfur compounds of raw fermented garlic. This is the same principle behind what people on the internet are now calling Amish amoxicillin, the recipe that went viral on social media after an ex-Amish reality television star posted a video about it that was viewed over 2.1 million times. Garlic, raw honey, and apple cider vinegar. But Eli's grandmother's version, written down in 1923, predates that viral recipe by exactly 100 years, and it uses the living ferment as the base rather than treating the ingredients as a static mixture. The fermentation transforms the garlic. It breaks down the allicin into more stable, more bioavailable sulfur compounds, and it pairs them with the lactic acid bacteria from the original ginger bug. I have personally watched a woman in Holmes County use this exact preparation to stop a chest cold in less than 48 hours after her grandson had been coughing for over a week. She poured 1 tablespoon into a small cup, mixed it with warm water and a touch of raw honey, and had him drink it morning and night. 48 hours later, the cough was gone, no prescription, no urgent care visit, no copay. The total cost of the ingredients was under $1. Now here is why I am calling this the secret finale, and why I believe almost nobody outside a few families in Lancaster and Holmes counties still knows the full version of this practice. The original ginger bug, the basic 3-ingredient ferment, has been written about online for at least a decade. You can find recipes for it on hundreds of blogs. But the secondary fermentation, the long bug, the one where you take a portion of the mother culture and re-ferment it with raw garlic for an additional 4 days, exists almost exclusively in handwritten family records like the one Eli showed me. I have searched, I have asked, I have talked to homesteaders, to fermentation enthusiasts, to people who teach fermentation classes for a living. Almost none of them have heard of this specific second stage preparation. Why? Because this knowledge was never written for the public. It was written for daughters and granddaughters on pages that were meant to stay in one family. And because the broader American supplement industry has no incentive whatsoever to promote a free, living, 2-stage ferment that replaces antibiotics, probiotics, antiviral capsules, and immune support tablets all at once for under $1 a month. You can do this at home this weekend with a jar you already own. You start the basic ginger bug exactly the way I described earlier. After 7 days, when it is bubbling and active, you pour off a half cup into a separate clean jar. You add 1 whole crushed clove of fresh organic garlic. You cover it with cloth. You let it sit on the counter for 4 more days, stirring gently once a day. After those 4 days, you strain it into a small glass bottle, store it in a cool, dark place, and you have a homemade preparation that the elder women of Holmes County have been quietly making for over a century. 1 spoon in the morning, 1 spoon at night. When you feel something coming on, that is the entire protocol. That is the secret that the woman in the 1923 binder wrote down in pencil for her daughter to find one day. You did not lose this knowledge because you were careless. You lost it because someone profited from you forgetting it. Every bottle in your cabinet has a story, and almost none of those stories started in a kitchen. They started in a boardroom. The Amish never let that happen because they never let go of the jar on the windowsill. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. You do not need permission. You do not need a prescription. You need a quart jar, a piece of cloth, a thumb-sized piece of ginger root, 2 spoonfuls of plain sugar, and the willingness to wait 7 days while something living wakes up on your kitchen counter. That is the entire investment, that is the entire risk. And on the 8th morning, you will pour your first glass and you will taste something that nobody in your family has tasted in 3 generations. Here is what I want you to do right now, before you click away. In the comments below, tell me one thing. Do you still have a handwritten recipe book somewhere in your family from a grandmother or a great aunt that nobody has opened in years? Maybe in a drawer, maybe in a box in the attic? Maybe tucked inside an old cookbook on the shelf? If you do, write the word binder in the comments. Just that one word. If you found value in this, subscribe and stay with us. This channel is not about content. It is about recovering what was taken. The next video I am working on covers a single Amish food storage technique used in the cold rooms of farmhouses in Geauga County, Ohio, that keeps eggs perfectly fresh for over 8 months without refrigeration, without any electricity, and using only 1 ingredient most people already have in their kitchen. I have already tested it. I have eggs from April in my pantry right now in October, and they are still good. That video drops next week. Until then, start your jar. Feed it tomorrow morning, stir it tomorrow night. And by the time my next video comes out, your bug will be alive, your kitchen will smell faintly of ginger and yeast, and you will have taken back something that was always supposed to be yours. The shelf full of bottles can wait, the jar on the windowsill cannot.